Cycle Solutions is your one-stop shop for upgrades and service. Cycle Solutions, Fort Myers, and CycleSolutions.com. Taking your bike from the street to the strip.
This is Chris Waddell from Cycle Solutions. I'm going to do a video today and talk about some of our driveline upgrades. This is a 2019 Fat Bob. It's got one of our 128-inch motors in it. Motor's done. We're working on the driveline. Yesterday we installed a Baker grudge box in here. And to solidify the connection between the crankshaft and the tranny, in this particular case we've used the Darkhorse Man of War comp sprocket. So what's pretty trick about this is it's the only comp sprocket that's technically rebuildable. It's got neoprene bushings inside of it. It also has a spacer on the front that catches oil, feeds oil inside the sprocket, so it actually lubricates the neoprene bushings. So that can be taken apart, 4 screws here come off, separates, and then you can replace them. Honestly, I haven't had any customers give me any feedback as to having had to replace them, but they can be rebuilt. So the basket is a billet Trask basket. We use them because they build them for their turbo applications, so they're especially well suited for a huge horsepower and torque naturally aspirated motor like this one is. It doesn't have a clutch in it right now. The clutch of choice in this particular case for this particular gentleman is he wants to do the Rekluse automatic, the EXP. This particular one is the RMS 6208, a brand new part number from Rekluse. Basically it's a torque drive clutch. It has all of their plates, both fiber and steel. And then it has what's called the EXP, or the expansion ring. And the trick about this is basically this is sitting here inside, and as the engine's sitting there at idle, the springs that force it to stay to open or close. So when it goes over 1200 RPM, they expand out like your hand would be letting out on the clutch, and away it goes. So basically it's kind of a reverse lockup. So it allows a person with, say, carpal tunnel or problems with their hand holding a clutch in to sit there at idle and not move, give it gas, and it goes. You still have to shift, but and use the clutch a bit to shift, but that's kind of how that works. In this particular case, we're going to try this bike with the stock tensioner, given the amount of horsepower it makes. I like to see what it's like with this before I put a Hayden tensioner in it. The Hayden goes up and down. This one just gets tighter for the most part. Very little backwards play, but this particular tensioner in the M8 sets the thing right about 3/8 automatically, and it seems to do a decent job. The choice between this sprocket, the Baker compensator, or the Evo Industries solid drive, in this particular case customer wanted the Darkhorse. It has a Darkhorse crank, so he wanted the Darkhorse compensator. But the solid drive, I have to say, is very light. This particular one in my hand is made for a breakout. In other words, a bike with a much wider tire. So currently for like the breakout, it's the only piece out there that will allow you to upgrade the compensator, in this case to a delete. This particular extension here would slide onto the sprocket shaft of the crankshaft and extend it out. And it literally extends it out to about the width of the teeth of the sprocket. Those particular bikes, because they're wider in the rear, have everything set out to the side. So that's a pretty trick part. We stock this from Evo Industries, and of course they make it for the regular applications, bagger and whatnot. They do come with a spacer that you have to use in the case of this bike, but like on the twin cams, depending on the area, you do or do not use a spacer. Something else nice about the Evo sprocket is if you have like an 07 or 08 or heck a early 2010 that has the original stator and rotor in it, that has the spring cup welded to it, you can take the springs out of the cup and then slide this right in, and you don't have to replace all the internals in the charging system. We see that a lot. People ask, well, doesn't that damage your transmission to put a solid sprocket instead of having something that gives? Well, what we've found, and I think a lot of people have found, is if you use the Hayden tensioner, which is this piece here. The thing about the Hayden is once it's installed inside, it can go both up and down because it has a pair of springs in it. And you can adjust the tension through a series of shims that they provide with it as well. And when it's time to replace the pad, you just chuck it, grab another one, stick it back on there, stick it in, and away you go. It's very smooth. I will say one thing about the Hayden, it does make kind of a whirling sound when it runs because it's following the chain every second. It's a pretty nice part. We sell a lot of them. So tune in for another episode on this particular bike. We're about to do the Legends front forks this morning. Tracy did performance machine brakes. We have a set of carbon fiber BST wheels that are going on this bike. We've also already got in the rear suspension. That particular piece is made by a company called Bitubo. So, very cool stuff. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to be notified when new videos from Cycle Solutions are released, hit the like and subscribe button to follow us.